Touchdown, Alabama, let's get it.
The process, no one can stop this. Hottest show in the streets, I bet you can't top this. Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
The process.
Hey everyone, welcome back into The Process, Crimson Tide Recruiting. I am your host, Justin Smith, the scouting and recruiting analyst for Touchdown Alabama. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. The first thing I want and need you to do for me is hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you're not a subscriber. If you are one of our loyal subscribers, hit that notification bell for me so you can be notified when we drop content on our YouTube channel. I am here each week to break down the latest of Crimson Tide football recruiting news. And on today's episode, I do want to preview the Crimson Tide's upcoming Cookout recruiting weekend. As Crimson Tide will have several top targets for multiple recruiting classes on campus this weekend, as they'll get an opportunity to continue building their relationship with those guys at their Cookout event. I'll talk about some of the top prospects who are expected to be in Tuscaloosa, including a 5-star Notre Dame commit in KEON. I'll talk a little bit about his recruitment and where the Crimson Tide currently stand in it, with him expected to be in Tuscaloosa on this weekend. I will also provide some updates about the Crimson Tide's targets who are expected to announce commitment soon, and that is where we are going to turn our attention to. First, talking about Hunter Osborne, the 4-star defensive lineman out of here at Trussville High School in Trussville, Alabama, has set his commitment date. He will announce his commitment on this upcoming Monday on August 1st. Of course, the Crimson Tide is one of the programs he is choosing from. He's also looking at programs like Clemson, who he took an official visit to over the summer. Other programs like Tennessee and Texas, visited both of those programs as well. At the moment, like I've been saying over the last couple of weeks, still looks as if it's going to be a Clemson and Alabama battle. If I had to make a prediction today, right at this moment, I would predict that he will commit to Alabama. We will see what happens on Monday in terms of what he brings to the table. Currently standing at 6'4", weighing approximately 265 pounds. Guy who's excellent in space for a guy his size. Comes off of the football with a lot of power, more of a powerful possible edge rusher, although I feel his natural position will be as an interior defensive lineman at the next level. The Tide see him possibly playing either as an edge rusher or as an interior guy. We will see what happens if he does commit to Alabama on Monday, but he is set to announce his commitment from here at Trussville High School. We'll have coverage from his commitment date on Monday, so stay locked into our website and to our YouTube page. Makari Vickers, a 4-star defensive back out of Florida, is another Alabama target who's set to announce a commitment in August. He would choose between the Crimson Tide, Oklahoma. He's also looking at Michigan. His recruitment is starting to look like a 2-team battle as well, although he does have 3 teams listed in his top 3, but at the moment it looks as if Michigan is the team who is falling off, while the Oklahoma Sooners and the Crimson Tide look to be the 2 teams battling it out for Makari Vickers' commitment at the moment. I would give Alabama a slight edge, but the Sooners are making a very strong push, led by the Crimson Tide's former defensive back coach Jay Valai, who built a relationship with Makari Vickers when he was on Alabama's staff. So that is a connection we have to pay attention to in terms of the Sooners pushing for Vickers, but the Tide are still in a good position with him. He has a good relationship with the Crimson Tide's defensive backs coach. We can take a look at Charles Cullen, and also Savarius Robinson has built a great relationship with Nick Saban over the last few months. So we'll see what happens. He did take an official visit to Alabama. And Oklahoma during the month of June. So we'll see what happens when it comes to the Sooners and the Crimson Tide. I think the Tide still have that slight edge. They have been recruiting Vickers hard, continuing to show him that he is a priority. Going back to his official visit, he said he left knowing and feeling like he was a priority because Nick Saban and Alabama's coaching staff is pitching to him that they are going to be looking for some freshmen to make an immediate impact in the secondary on next season, because they are expected to lose some guys in this secondary this upcoming season. So when you look at the Crimson Tide's defensive back targets in their commits, that is what they are hearing from Alabama's coaching staff. And take a look at Caleb Downs, Tony Mitchell. They talk about Alabama's depth and how they will possibly have an opportunity to play as freshmen. And and freshman, and that's one of the reasons why they chose the Crimson Tide, and Tide are pitching that same thing to Makari Vickers. Another Alabama target who possibly could be set to announce a commitment soon is Kelby Collins, a 4-star defensive end out of Gardendale High School in Gardendale, Alabama, one of the Crimson Tide's top defensive lineman targets, top in-state targets as well. Similar to Hunter Osborne, he's a guy who could be an edge rusher or an interior guy at the next level. I think he has a better opportunity to be an edge guy than Hunter Osborne at the moment, but Collins is similar to Osborne in a lot of ways because they both rely on their power in terms of getting to the quarterback and affecting the run game as well. Both guys are just powerful rushers at the moment, but Collins currently has a top 5. His recruitment is still trending towards the direction of being a 2-team battle as well, and the 2 teams who we are looking at are the Florida Gators and the Crimson Tide. Tide actually hosted Collins a couple of times this week, and Gators will host him this weekend for their recruiting event. So we'll see if the Gators can possibly pull Collins from Tuscaloosa. He grew up an Alabama fan. He always wanted an Alabama offer. I know we hear that a lot, specifically from in-state guys. The Crimson Tide's defensive line coach Freddie Roach has worked to build a relationship with Hunter Osborne and Kelby Collins. Specifically, when I talked to Collins during the Gardendale spring practice, he told me that Freddie Roach was not only building a relationship with him, he's worked to build a relationship with his parents as well. So the Tide are in a solid position with Collins still looking like a 2-team battle. He has not announced a commitment date, but we will see if he announces one pretty soon. We will see where his commitment choice will be. Will most likely be the Gators or the Tide if I had to make a prediction today. Another guy who the Crimson Tide got on campus this week was Raymond Polito, a 2023 4-star offensive lineman out of California, who the Crimson Tide are showing an increased interest in at the moment. He currently has the Crimson Tide listed among his top schools after visiting Alabama in June. He impressed Alabama's coaching staff, and they immediately started to push for him in this 2023 recruiting cycle. Although he stands at about 6'6", 6'7", 340 pounds, I think he's more of a guard at the moment. He's a guy with some nice athleticism for his size. He's a great run blocker, light on his feet, so there are definitely a lot of qualities I like out of Polito. Like I said, he does have a top school list. Alabama's included in that with programs like Arizona. Also have Louisville located in his top school list at the moment. He said he's could possibly make a commitment announcement on National Signing Day, waiting all the way to December. That is something that's definitely a possibility, and the Tide could still very well be in the mix for him heading down that long stretch if he does decide to hold off his commitment for that amount of time. When I got an opportunity to talk with him before he visited Tuscaloosa this week, what he said about his Alabama relationship was, he said, I probably have one of the better relationships with their coaching staff. They definitely feel like home in a way. I mean, Alabama's Alabama for a reason, and sure, they got good facilities, but I respect the way that they run the program. Those of you who have been following Alabama recruiting, you know how impactful the Crimson Tide's offensive line coach Eric Wolford has been on the Crimson Tide's recruiting efforts. He played a huge role in the Tide picking up Wilkin Formby, Olas Alanin, and also picking up a commitment from Wyquez McElderry at Anniston High School in Anniston, Alabama. Polito also has a great relationship with Wolford and also with the Crimson Tide's offensive tackle commit Wilkin Formby. Formby was in Tuscaloosa. He stays in Tuscaloosa, but he was hanging out with Coach Wolford and Polito during his visit this week. But some of the things he had to say about Coach Wolford was he feels he's a great guy. He said his love for the game as well as for the guys that the Crimson Tide have on their roster, as well as guys who are verbally committed to them, is something that really stands out to him as well. So Polito is a guy to definitely pay attention to as the Crimson Tide continue to recruit offensive linemen. Compared to the 2022 recruiting class, where they pulled in basically 2 guys when you take a look at Tyler Booker and Elijah Pritchard, because Dane Shore did not stay with Alabama. The Tide only landed 2 guys. I expected them to pick up an increased number of guys in this 2023 class when it comes to offensive linemen, but with them continuing to recruit a lot of offensive linemen, offensive tackles in particular, the Tide could be looking at possibly adding 5 to 6 offensive linemen in this class. I think that is a development that we have to pay attention to as well. A guy who the Crimson Tide is also showing a lot of interest in at the moment, who we have not heard a lot about, similar to Polito, is MONROE FREELING out of South Carolina. He currently has a top 7, but the Tide is not included in that top 7. So I think it just paints a picture that the Crimson Tide are making a little bit of a late push in terms of his recruitment, because he is one of the more talented offensive linemen. You know, he has been getting recruited for so long, but like I always say, there is such a long time away from today to national signing day. So there's still a long way to go in this recruitment, and the Crimson Tide are starting to make a huge push for him as of late. Getting him on campus this weekend is going to be huge for Alabama. He's actually on campus already. Tweeted that he was on campus actually, I think, a couple of minutes ago. So the Tide have an opportunity to host him, show him what they can offer. One of the better offensive tackles in this 2023 recruiting class. Did take a couple of official visits in June. I know he officially visited Miami, officially visited Notre Dame. The Tide will host him for an unofficial visit on this weekend. We'll see how that goes and see how that will impact his recruitment. But he is an offensive lineman to know. As I said earlier, the Tide looks as if they could be pushing towards adding a good number of offensive linemen in the 2023 recruiting class, after basically only picking up 2 guys in the 2022 recruiting cycle. But I think the main focus of today's show is the prospect I think everyone wants to talk about. It that is 5-star defensive end KEON, who's verbally committed to Notre Dame at the moment. He's returning to Tuscaloosa to take an unofficial visit this weekend. We'll be in Tuscaloosa for a couple of days. He has a lot of respect for the Alabama football program. Of course, he's verbally committed to the Fighting Irish. He's solidly, firmly committed to them at the moment, but he is showing a lot of interest in Alabama. And with guys who are flip targets, I think they only become, most of the time, they only become serious flip targets when they make that second visit. Of course, everyone wants to get out to that first visit. That's part of the recruiting process. Get out to all these schools and see what they have to offer. It's a trip that you get to enjoy with your family. Just a great time and a great opportunity to enjoy the recruiting process. But when you take that second visit, that return visit, that is showing that you are really interested in this school, and it's a possibility that you could be going there seriously in the future. And I think that is why a lot of people are going to be looking at KEON on this weekend. Of course, he picked up an offer from the Crimson Tide in January. I think took an unofficial visit to the Crimson Tide very shortly after picking up that offer. And after that visit, he told me that he feels Alabama offers things off the field that are extremely useful in life and football. He said the visit went well, was a great atmosphere, experienced a lot of cool things. He said he felt Coach Saban was amazing. He's a great coach and he knows what it takes to be successful. Some of the things that he was able to say about Saban in his Alabama visit, just speaking highly of the Crimson Tide. And in terms of what he brings to the table, he fits exactly what Alabama is looking for in an edge rusher at 6'6", weighing approximately, I think, 240 pounds at the moment. More of a lengthy guy, a guy who's very physical off the edge, explosive off of the snap of the football, a physical tackler, had 16.5 sacks as a junior. I'm sure he wants to improve that as a senior. Definitely a huge target for Alabama, possibly one of their top flip targets at the moment. I think with him returning to Tuscaloosa, he's definitely a serious target for the Crimson Tide to flip at the moment. A top target for the Crimson Tide in this 2023 recruiting class moving forward. We'll continue to keep our eyes out on KEELY, along with Miles McVay, who will also be in Tuscaloosa on this weekend. McVay is a 4-star offensive lineman at East St. Louis High School in Illinois. Will take an unofficial visit to the University of Alabama before he announces his commitment on August 11th. Of course, he's announcing his commitment, showing a lot of thankfulness and to honor his mother for her birthday. But in terms of his commitment announcement, a lot of teams still look to be in the mix. I think Alabama is in a very, very good position with McVay, 6'6", possibly 340-pound offensive lineman, a guy who really knows how to make himself wide, can continue to block up the field, can get to the second level. Nice footwork for a guy his size. Like I said, I think the Tide are in a solid position with him, but you also have programs like Michigan State. You have Texas trying to make a late push from Miles McVay. The Crimson Tide's offensive line coach Eric Wolford has built a solid relationship with him, but so has the Crimson Tide's defensive line coach Freddie Roach. That is actually maybe a bit odd, but that's actually the person he has the strongest relationship with at the moment. So if the Tide were able to pull in McVay, this would be another huge win for Freddie Roach. And if they are able to pull in guys like Hunter Osborne and Kelby Collins will also be huge wins for Roach as well. So the Crimson Tide's defensive line coach Freddie Roach continues to do work on the recruiting trail. Another guy who will be on campus this weekend, the Crimson Tide are targeting, making a little bit of a late push also, is JARIEN Hamilton, a guy who has really seen his recruitment start to rise, I think, very late in the recruiting process. Although he is a top wide receiver, a very experienced route runner, a speedy prospect, a guy who can make plays after the catch. Picked up an offer from Alabama in June after he impressed at camp. That offer, of course, came from Nick Saban. He will return to Tuscaloosa, take an unofficial visit for the cookout event. He said he felt that he did really good at the camp. I'm going to read you guys some of the quotes after I got an opportunity to catch up with him after he wrapped up an impressive camp performance in Tuscaloosa. He said that he feels that Nick Saban is one of the greatest coaches of all time. He's a legend in the game. He said getting an offer from Alabama is like a dream. A lot of kids don't get this opportunity. Just some of the things that you typically hear out of guys who get offers from Alabama, but he's returning to Tuscaloosa, showing that Alabama is definitely considering him to I think rise on their recruiting board. I think he's going to be one of those guys who's going to continue to rise as they continue to try to recruit wide receivers in the 2023 recruiting class. So we'll see what happens with his recruitment after this visit. He does currently have an impressive top 7. Despite him being a 3-star recruit on most recruiting sites, I expect him to be a 4-star by the time everything is over with. But he has a top 7. He has Alabama, Michigan State, Mississippi State, Michigan, USC, West Virginia, and also Tennessee loaded in his top 7. I'm pretty sure USC is making a strong push. I know Michigan State is as well. Michigan is a team who has hosted him a couple of times, so we'll see what happens with the Wolverines as well. But we'll see where the Crimson Tide stand in this recruitment after he wraps up this unofficial visit on this weekend. But that is what I wanted to take a look at on this episode of The Process. Just preview the Crimson Tide's upcoming cookout event, with them hosting 5-star defensive end KEON KEELY. The Tide are definitely a threat for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish at the moment by getting him back on campus. I know I talked about Peyton Bowen, I think, on the last episode of The Process, another Notre Dame target who the Crimson Tide are going after. Similar to KEELY, if the Tide can get him back on campus, maybe he becomes more of a realistic flip target for them. So we'll continue to pay attention to his recruitment as well. He said he feels that Alabama is a school who really wants him to be a part of their 2023 recruiting class, one of the faster prospects in his class. When you take a look at Peyton Bowen, also previewed some guys who could be announcing commitments soon in terms of Kelby Collins, but Hunter Osborne and McCarry Vickers have already locked in commitment dates. We'll see what happens with those guys in August, along with Miles McVay. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Subscribers, hit that notification bell for me so you can be notified when we drop content on our YouTube channel. Also head over to our website, pick up your subscription there as well. With that subscription, you'll be able to read all of our subscriber only articles. Then head to the Google Play Store if you have an Android device to download the Touchdown Alabama app. Go to the Apple App Store if you have an Apple device to download the app as well. With that app, breaking news notifications will be sent to your mobile device. As always, I am Justin Smith, the scouting and recruiting analyst for Touchdown Alabama.
Process.